Hey everyone, and welcome back to another normal episode of the Fantasy Fiends podcast, if we can even say that.
Today, I feel bad for Catherine because she was like usually we say another special episode, but last episode was the special episode. So now we're introducing Catherine. You're here for a normal episode. Like this is special too, Catherine.
Of course it is. I believe you.
And I'm just special. So
on that we can agree.
Special podcast means we're not sober. So
that's
what that means.
Special with with capital letters. That's when it's not sober.
And if
I saw you guys getting really drunk the other night.
Yeah.
So,
I got more tired than anything. Just alcohol for me, like at the end of the night, if I don't have anything planned, I'm just like, ugh. And I still had to edit, and I got it done, Andy.
I'm so proud of you, Stevie.
It was freaking rough.
Ben afterward, he was like, well, fuck it. I'm going to play video games.
Good for him. Good for him. Yeah, I just, well, before I get into story time, we have Catherine M. Walker today, and she's the author of Shattering Dreams, which is the book one of The Being of Dreams. And we're going to be reading from that one, I believe. I have it open. Yeah. Yes. We sure are. And we are going to be talking about a really interesting topic today. But Catherine, why don't you introduce yourself?
my name is Catherine M. Walker, and as just said, I'm the author of the first two books in my epic fantasy series, and the third one, hopefully, will be out soon.
Awesome. Yeah, because are we allowed to talk about your editing problems, or do you just want to?
Yes, you can. It's fine. It's
we get personal here.
Happen, right?
So Catherine murdered her editor. It was bloody, slit her throat. I was half and half through the conversation. Someone got the throat slit, and she didn't get her edits back. That's what it is.
I got cranky. I didn't like what he said, so I'm afraid he had to die.
He insulted Vegemite and Tim Tams, and he was done for.
Mm-hmm. And particularly the Vegemite. I'm sorry.
Wait, are you?
It's a step too far.
Is that that's an Australian thing, right?
Yes.
Are you
people or the Vegemite?
Both. Everything kills you in Australia, I hear.
Pretty much. We've got, I think, something like the 8, 9 of the top 10 most poisonous things in the world.
The box jellyfish too. I think we have them in Texas, but I think you guys have those. Those are fun.
Yeah.
Fun fact: I swam through a swarm of baby jellyfish. They're like minuscule, like you can barely see them. Yeah, and not to get like a little bit personal, I got them everywhere. Everywhere. And me and the person I was with were both nude on the beach getting it off. Like you lose all sense of
getting it off, Stevie.
Oh, I would have. I almost did. Like with the bunch of pulling and stroking I was doing, like, and it's like ants. You got to go like this because they're stinging your hands while you're getting
the little baby jellyfish.
Oh, fuck those things! Thousands of them. Have you ever had your butt hole shocked, Andy? I'm sorry. I know, Catherine. It got weird quick, but it's a true story.
I was wondering where you were going with the butthole comment. Yeah.
Well, we've got more butthole talk later on in the podcast. That's actually the theme. But yeah, Australia. Do we call you Aussies? I've never asked that before. You're an Aussie, or is that something else?
No, that's Aussies. That's us. Yep. Kiwis
Okay.
And New Zealanders. That's
Kiwis. Okay, so Andy, we had the other lady here who
Eileen. She's from New Zealand.
Why did she call herself a Kiwi though? They have the Kiwi bird, right?
They're from New Zealand. Mm-hmm. New Zealanders are Kiwis.
Okay.
Australians are Aussies.
Exactly.
Okay.
They're not the same country, Stevie.
I know that, but I thought you said you call yourself a Kiwi too, Catherine.
No. I said like we're Aussies and New Zealanders are Kiwis.
Oh.
You missed the relevant part there.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have selective hearing. Andy knows this about me. That's why I had moon cycles and sun cycles in my book. Because even though he warned me. Awesome. So we do have a really cool topic for you guys today, and that is freeing my willy. How free is free will really?
Stevie, you get like one of those per podcast. You've already done 2.
Catherine loves it. Catherine loves the jokes. That's what makes the Fantasy Fiends special with that hand gesture. Oh God, I didn't even know I was doing hand gestures. So Catherine, I had an end goal with that story, but I forgot Catherine, at the beginning of our podcast, we usually do something called the coolest thing that's happened to us recently. And I was hoping that within the past 2 weeks or month, something in the... Andy, can you explain this in English?
We talk about something cool that's happened to us in the last couple of weeks. Stevie, do you have something cool to talk about?
Yes. Let me tell you about jellyfish.
No
No.
jellyfish.
You know what? Something cool. Yeah, Mech Ops. My mech series is doing really well for a $2.99 release. It's the first $2.99 release I've ever done. And wow, I'm honestly, it's that imposter syndrome that you guys know I deal with whenever I get all this positive reinforcement. And it's funny because I didn't get it on the Bizarre Blades. I got it on my sci-fi series, which is interesting. But the great thing about it is they love the jokes, they love the humor, and that's where I get the most praise from the book. And I really think I found my calling. Like, I'm just gonna be, you pick up a Stevie Collier book, you're gonna chuckle at some points. So it's good news, and it really has inspired me to just really be the best writer that I can be. So thank you. That's my
awesome. That is good news.
It really that kind of saved me from the jellyfish story, didn't it?
No
No
coming back from that one, Stevie.
Mm-mm.
I understand. I totally understand. What about you, Andy?
So good news is I haven't officially done it, but I'm half a chapter away from finishing the 6th book in the Cerberus series. I'll finish it up tomorrow morning, nice and easily.
No big deal.
Yeah, it's half a chapter. Just it's basically the dramatic hook ending.
Nice.
All the emotional stuff sorted, everything else. Now I just gotta, do that holy shit moment that ends the book and makes people want to pick up the next one. So it'll take me maybe an hour tomorrow to finish it. So for all intents and purposes, Cerberus book 6 is done, which means I am halfway through the series. All 6 of the books that I had previously outlined are done, which means I need to start working on the outline for the next 6. But halfway through is pretty damn good, and I'm stoked about that.
Wow, that is awesome. And you're seriously going to end up with 12?
Yeah. Well, that's the story. So basically, when I sat down to outline the series, I was like, all right, what are all of the matchups that I want to do? Like the one I'm working on now, he goes sniper versus sniper. And it's like someone who was trying to be, the version of him, special forces sniper, tried to take all of his records on for his special forces unit. And it's basically someone who tried to be like him. So he's going scope to scope with him. And that's super, super fun for me. And then I've got, his AI versus another AI, or him their limbs in war and, has cybernetic limbs, like just playing with things like that. And so there were 12 matchups needed to finish the story.
Wow. That's awesome, man. Like, and I know it's doing really well if you look at the reviews. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah, it's been amazing to explore. The most interesting thing for me has been the complexity of the character as a recovering drug addict and a paraplegic and a former soldier who does all this kind of, assassination stuff. It's such an interesting thing. There's so many different ways that the character could go, the stories could go. So being able to dive into all the different aspects of it. And not only is he, almost 5 years sober, but he's helping someone who's literally 2 weeks sober stay on that path. So you get to see, the struggles that are real years after you get clean, and then the struggles that are just right away.
You always make your books so intense. So much research goes into those,
Yeah.
Catherine. He's a walking library. What about you, Catherine?
Well, other than the dramas, which we won't mention because that's, the MIA editor.
Yes.
I am 35,000 words into my new project, though.
Woo-hoo!
Wow, very nice.
Yeah, well, and I'm a bit of a pantser, though, so I'm starting to learn where it's going and who my characters are. It's based in the same world as my current world, but gone back in the past. And now learning those things of, when you write it in your current series and then you go back and all forward either way, you've written things and then you're constrained by some of the stuff that you've actually written, and some of it might actually cause you a bit of a issue and you have to work your way around it. So that's becoming an interesting thing, I think, for not only this series, but the series after that one.
That is the worst part about doing things set in the same world, is that you've already stated something. It's already canon, so you have to stick with it. And so it's like I've fudged a number of details in some of my different series, because if I didn't, it just wouldn't work.
Well, the only reason I went with this series is because better reader for book 2, my second book, and I wrote 2 snippets from 2 characters explaining who they were, and they were alive generations and generations ago, so they're long lived basically. And I wrote, it was only a page and a half about them, their lives, and what had happened to them. And a better reader came back going, wow, I really want to read that story. Can you do that next?
Absolutely.
And then I thought, well, you know what? Yeah, I can. And that's a good idea. I think I might do that.
That's
that,
always
of course,
so cool when it happens.
constrains what I can do, because I hadn't expected when I first wrote it that I would actually be writing the full story.
Yeah.
Are you originally from Australia?
Yes.
Okay. I was just curious. And I was wondering, like, are people in Australia even worried about COVID, or is it just like, oh, another thing trying to kill us? All right. No big deal.
It does add up. I think everyone's wanting this year to just be cancelled. And let's fast forward to next year. Like, we've had the bushfires before this, so that kicked in. We only just got, like, literally during the bushfires, it was that toxic.
That's right.
In this town that there's me at the window going,
oh no. I see that on Reddit. Like, hello guys, did we forget about the koala bears? Come on. And that was an interesting thing, all the people giving money towards that. I know my business, we gave a little bit, and we had, like, on our website and stuff. I get to do it, so I run the website, so I get to do stuff like that. And I'm always trying to do fun things for the environment, because it's an outdoors business, so it's really cool.
Well, it was pretty harsh, because we're used to bushfires. It's what we know. They happen every year, kind of
they
they do over there. Oh yeah. Okay. But these were just worse than what they normally are. We've been through a big drought as well, and some parts are still going through that. So there's just the tinder was building up basically. So when fires hit, they've just gone through the whole thing.
We had a talk in this. So I work in a very rural town, and we had to talk about the drought. And someone said, I don't see how they're worried about that drought with all that salt water around them. And I was like, you're joking, right? Or he said ocean, all that ocean around. I was like, I don't even know how to respond to you, sir. I don't know if that really helps.
Yeah, no, not really.
Not even a little.
Not even a little. I did. Conspiracy guy told me, they can make salt water drinking water, right? And I'm like, well, even if I didn't know that, I don't know that if that's true or not. Some people have told me it's true. But, like, why is that a conspiracy? I don't.
Desalination plants.
Yeah,
exactly.
They're very expensive though, so it's a very expensive way to get water. I could only see it becoming viable if we actually ran out of fresh water, and that would be the only reason I would expect people will develop the technology more.
So people in my town, this old Texas town, they get conspiracies from the 60s, and that's like they finally catch up to the 60s of conspiracies. I can talk about Rockdale, Texas all day, which it's a delightful place. It's small and small. No, it's awesome. Well,
I get it, because I came from a small country town in WA originally. So
okay.
Yeah.
Where one last question about the fires, because I'm just for my curiosity, I have really, really bad asthma. How was the air?
Bad.
It was
Really
bad.
bad.
Okay, so I would have struggled.
Yeah, like literally, I wasn't joking about staying inside. You go to work. We went to work, and because of environmental concerns, over the break while we were at work over Christmas, they turned the air conditioners off inside. So they have a system where they're off when people aren't there, and they turn back on when people are there. But because they were off, all the smoke came into the building. So we all came back into work, and walking down like the hallways and things, it was worse inside in some respects than outside. So
They didn't make
had
you
to
work,
start
did
to-
they?
No. Well, eventually, once they decided what to do, they sent us home. So, but I had a laptop at home anyway, so I just worked from home.
Yeah. Do you mind if I ask what you do?
Let's just say I work in emergency services.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
okay. Australian MI6. Gotcha. Totally get it. The koalas.
Uh-huh.
Koala Force.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. That's what it's called. How
She's
did you
like,
know?
you're laughing like, you stupid motherfucker. You have no clue. Don't you screw with the koala squad. No, but
Yeah, we're just dangerous.
fun fact though, for Bizarre Blades, I studied the most trained people in the world, from Navy SEALs to I always call them Sputniks, the Russian Spetsnaz. That's right. And Australia had one of the biggest ones too. And y'all are just freaking nuts. Like,
well, what else have we got to do? We're far away from everything, so,
Yeah, you said it. I didn't say that. But I just thought it was cool. I forgot what they did, but I know running was part of it. And I was like, done. No,
it's the Australian SAS, right? That's their.
Is that it? It sounds familiar.
I think so.
I think in terms, because we're a small population, but in some areas we're regarded as premium suppliers, almost, if you can use that word, just simply because the guys do have equipment, and as I said, what else are we going to do? So they train, and we have quite a few specialist units and teams as well.
Do they carry guns there
in Australia?
Yes.
The
police officers
carry guns, yeah.
They do.
That's
Okay.
like the US in that regard. But you can't even carry a butter knife in Australia if you're intending to use it as a weapon.
Interesting. Okay.
So if you cannot carry a weapon, you cannot say, I've got this M16 in my boot for self-defense.
Wow. I gotta say,
you can't even carry one, to be honest. You're not allowed to buy one because you're a member of the public. So yeah.
Texas just made their laws softer. You can now carry a sword, I believe. Something insane. You can carry huge weapons in Texas, and all it does is just make everybody incredibly uncomfortable. Like, we have this open carry thing. I can't stand seeing people open carry. I don't like to know. It scares me, especially when they have, the Confederate flag hat on, or anything really that just makes me, I don't care for it. It's just, Texas is very conservative.
Just
slightly.
A tip. If you're coming to Australia, don't bring weapons with you.
Oh, I understand. Yeah, I won't, I promise. I'll just grab a crocodile and just kind of hoist him like a chainsaw.
You can use one of those. That's fine. You just can't use an actual weapon.
And I got to say, Catherine, your blue eyes are making me jealous because I just got poop brown eyes. Like they I don't know what's up with your camera. They're just like popping.
I inherited my dad's eyes, and my mum has blue eyes as well. But dad's eyes are really electric blue.
Really?
Yeah.
They just did a meme on Reddit, like, girls with bright blue eyes. They always look like they're staring at you in through your soul. And I was like, who do I know that has blue eyes? And I was like, Andy. Andy's got blue eyes. They're pretty too.
All right.
Yeah, when he takes his glasses off, it's like a completely different person.
That's right.
So do you often think about Andy staring into your soul?
I think
Stevie thinks about me in all the most inappropriate times too.
Just always. I know Rebecca's enjoying all this. So let's get on with the topic, shall we, Andy?
Definitely.
Catherine, good to go.
Mm-hmm.
So Andy will, as usual, hopefully talk about what we're talking about today.
Well, I like this because Catherine was the one who suggested this. And she was talking about free will, but it's sort of like the illusion of free will, where it's the character is supposedly allowed to make a choice, but there's always times when you feel you don't really have a choice. I'm going to bring this to my own life a little bit. My wife will tell me, would you like to go for a walk? Now, we both know in her mind, the answer has to be yes, or we're in for some fighting. For me, it's like, all right, now, do I actually have free will to answer no? Or do I have to say yes? Not because she is making me say it, but if I don't say yes and I don't go on this walk, we're going to get into an argument. For like, that's a ridiculous way of putting it. But in a way, it's pretty indicative of what it's actually like. Is like, you're supposed to be able to say yes or no to things, but then when it comes down to it, it's not really a choice. So where does it shift from free will to free will, but you're kind of backed into a corner, so you really only have one logical option?
Exactly. And when you take it like that, that's exactly what it is. Like, yes, you do have free will. You can say no, but then you know your life's probably going to be miserable for a bit until you get over the argument. So then you go and do things sometimes that you really don't want to. So was that really choice?
Yeah, it's so interesting that we're talking about this today, because I was reading a book called The Psychology of Winning, because I'm always just listening to self-help, and they were talking about someone that was in a concentration camp, which immediately makes me uncomfortable. Something about that just makes me obviously why it makes me uncomfortable, but I think other people can talk about it better than I can. I read Night, and after I read Night, I've always just had this, like, it's terrifying to me to be someone takes you and then they try to trick you like you have no free will. Obviously, physically you don't, but this person talked about how he just studied everybody. So he was in the concentration camp too, and he studied who died and who lived. And it was the people that just kind of gave up that did that, that passed away. They didn't have a goal. And his goal was staying alive as long as possible to study these other people. And then he also talked about will and how they can do whatever they want to, but they can never take away your mind. Not sure how much that goes into today's podcast, but I find that fascinating that some people are that strong that they can't be broken.
But even if you look in reality, so I don't know about you guys, but when you go to school and you remember back and there was that one person who from very, very young would say things like, I'm going to be a brain surgeon or whatever. And, I was going to be an astronaut. I was going to go up in a TIE fighter and destroy the Death Star and do all sorts of things.
Oh, good stuff. Yeah.
But I didn't actually end up doing any of them. But there's that person who says from very young, I am going to be a brain surgeon. They stick to it. They become an adult and they really are a brain surgeon. So what happened that what drove them through their entire life that they actually became that? And something has to be driving them and pushing them in those directions.
Oh, I could talk about that a lot. I love that.
Stevie's going to take that to someone who says I'm going to be a brain surgeon is basically manifesting themselves as a brain surgeon.
Yeah, and you know what? I've calmed down. So I'm a big law of attraction guy. I have pulled back a little bit. I just don't take everything, all these gurus' words. I read the books from a very just like there's no science to back it up, and that bugs me when people say there is, because there's not. Last time I checked, magnets don't attract other magnets, so I still believe in it. But I think it's fascinating when we ask what is driving us, what's pushing us towards that destiny. Is there even a destiny? Do we have free will? Because I get that argument all the time because I'm a Christian, and they say, well, you don't really have free will because God knows what's going to happen to you. And that's already been addressed by a lot of religions, why that's not the case. But yeah, and to me, I have a very positive outlook on it. I do believe that we have the choice in that, but I do think that when you ask for help, something does push you along. But not everyone is as fortunate as I am. And I also see that as reality. Some people aren't privileged like I was.
Taking it back to the world of fiction, there's that concept of the reluctant hero, where faced with a circumstance, it's like there's no real choice. And I think I've written this into a few characters where it's like he didn't want to do it. He knew it was going to it was going to lead to problems. He could get himself killed, but he didn't really have any choice because he knew better. Or she knew better. She knew that if she didn't do this, people were going to suffer. People were going to die. So it's like they had to do it, and that's sort of an internal compelling that forces us to, sort of like our conscience driving us to do things. But then these external forces, sometimes like the external force that is my wife, being compelled to do things. Like Rebecca said, you have the free will to choose to suffer. That's what being married is all about.
But in writing terms as well, when you think about it, we all spend time thinking about our characters, particularly our main characters, and we all know far more about what drives our characters forward than you will often put in a book. So sometimes you have all of this backstory of these things that have happened in a character's life that push them forward and why they would make certain decisions and certain things they do. And that happens in real life as well as in books. So there's that one event that happens that then just drives you towards this almost inescapable conclusion, regardless of whether you like it. So in the fictional world, I think, Andy, as you've just mentioned as well, where if they don't do it, the world dies. So they have to actually go down that path, or just sit back and watch the world die, which is generally not very good.
Wow, yeah. So I actually have, you have to hold stuff back. Obviously, can't put it all in the book. And sometimes, I think I've seen reviews that people are like, I don't know why the character did what he did, and yeah, you should have wrote that in there, but you're like, it should have been obvious. That's just who he is. That's just why he does that thing. But I don't know. That's just me.
I always walk my characters through that mental journey just because I need to understand it. So like I'll present both sides of the coin. I love that. For some reason in my writing, that contrast thing always comes out. If there's snow, there's either got to be something black or some blood. Like it's just the way my brain works. And so if there's going to be a sky, it's got to be either super pretty or it's got to be super dark. I don't know. I just have this thing of contrast, and I'll always do this where it's like the character knew the shit was going to happen to him if he did it, if he sacrificed himself. He didn't want to do it, but he knew it was the right thing. So it's like I contrast the desire versus the necessity for myself, for my own needs, so that I can see, to explain why the character is going to make the sacrifice, so that it's genuine in my brain. And of course, I think readers understand that too, because it's literally laid out for them on the page, as opposed to, like you say, it's just, it should be obvious by the character's personality. Sometimes people do things that are against their personality, or sometimes their personality doesn't really account for it. So when it comes to my writing, at least, I find that having that explanation helps me understand it better. And so far I haven't gotten many complaints saying, well, this was way over explained for me. So hopefully I'm not doing it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I found that was one of the feedback I got from someone, and they were complaining about certain things that one of my characters was doing and going, it's out of character. He wouldn't do that. He's a nice guy. And it's like, yeah, he is, but he's hurting right now. So he's acting out in a way that he wouldn't normally do.
Yeah.
And yes, he is going to acknowledge that he's done the wrong thing, but right now he's just doing stuff he would just never do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing that's always like, that has to be acknowledged when characters do things that are against their nature. There are things that make us act against personality. In the last of the Cerberus books, book 5 I was writing, the character is a sniper, right? So he's used to taking shots from upwards of 600 meters. And he gets right up close and personal. He hunts a guy down, he pulls a dagger, and he's gonna make it a real personal kill. And the guy turns around and shoots him, and he's like, holy shit, I just made this massive mistake. I let it get personal. I closed in when I could have, 5 minutes ago, just set up and taken the shot. And so, for a sniper to do something like that, like, it's got to be acknowledged, or else people would be like, what did he just do? And that was a mistake I made in book 4, where I made the character close in. And one of my readers, a very perceptive and analytical one, who I'm very grateful for, said, no, this is absolutely not what a sniper would do. Instead of rushing in, he just calmly, unfold the bipod on his, on his rifle, set up, aim, shoot, game over. And so, it's okay to have characters break personality. It's okay for us to break personality in real life, but as long as there's a reason for it, just like there's a reason for everything that happens in life, or everything that humans do. Let's say that.
True.
I got this argument one time, and I don't think the person realized how much of a addict I am when it comes to self-help books. And it was, well, what about people who just kind of don't do anything and they just, let the government take care of them and all this stuff? They don't really have free will, and it's not their choice. They just let things happen to them. And I was like, it's not even an argument. That's their free will to do that. They made that decision to do that. They made the decision to become a victim. And I don't know. It's just a point I wanted to place in there. It's not a very strong argument, but it's something that I've heard before, which is just fascinating, that we don't have a choice. We always have a choice. When I'm not talking about catastrophes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
If you come from the developing world, so you come from a country where there's very little schooling, unless you come from a rich family, and your father is a fisherman, that's the only skill you've got, so you're going to be
Yeah.
efficient. So sometimes we live in worlds where we're a lot more constrained just simply by the circumstances and the world that we're in.
Yeah.
So I believe there are levels to that, and we are constrained, or down to an event that happens to you early on. So with one of my characters, I discussed this with you earlier, like he watched his mother get his throat slit when he was a little boy. So growing up as an adult, he spends a lot of time running away from the things and duty and what he should be doing, just simply because prior to that moment, that's what he wanted. He wanted to join his brothers and his sisters at the court and to have all of that. So he almost went to the polar opposite because of life experience.
Mm-hmm.
And in real life, there are people that are that.
Did he not have his dad?
His dad was there.
His dad was there.
Oh yeah, no. His dad's alive.
Okay.
No, in the first book, his dad's alive.
Spoiler.
And his brother, and he has a great relationship with them. But yeah, he has his 3 best friends. He basically isolates himself with his three friends. Like breaching that little sort of circle of friendship between the 3 of them is almost impossible, essentially.
Was there any like attachment problems with like psychologically just to like other women because of the mother dying?
Not necessarily. Like he has issues because he's a son of a king, so he doesn't actually trust many people. Like he's always looking at it from the perspective of what do they want.
That makes sense. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious about that because I don't think I've ever killed off a mother in one of my books. It's getting to that point now where I'm just like, what have I written so far?
Well, that's a spoiler, but I'm not going to release that. You can read it.
Yeah. Playing on what you said, Catherine, about the fisherman. So my own life, I grew up in a cult, right? Which you didn't know about me, but some of the people who watch this podcast did. So my life growing up until I was about mid-20s, I only had 5 different career options at most, growing up within this context. So, when I left and I saw people who becoming lawyers, people becoming entrepreneurs, people becoming doctors, all these things, it's like I never had that chance. I never had the choice to do any of those things because of the way I was raised, because of where I was raised, the culture in which I was raised. And then after I got out, I had this constraint of having to support my family. So I couldn't stop working to go to medical school or law school or, do business school or whatever. So by the time, now my kids are teenagers, 2 have left the house, I've got more time on my hands. But like my wife and I were talking about this the other day, if the author thing ever doesn't work out, I have no idea what career options I have, simply because I never had the chance to get that kind of higher education. I never fucked up the chance to get higher education, but I never had it either. So it's like, if I don't think I could go to college now in my 30s, or by the time, I'm 40 or something. I don't know if I could do that because I've never had that experience. So I've never gone through it. Yeah. But like I had the free will to become who I am, but at the same time, I didn't really have the same degree of free will as someone like Stevie, who grew up in, as close to a normal average household as one could
very reasonably
hope for, So it's an interesting thing how circumstances can definitely shape what free will even means to us, as opposed to, someone else in a very, very different circumstance.
Yeah, definitely. And all of those life experiences, I think, shape us as we go through.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I'm not the same person now that I was, 30 years ago. Like we all change as we go through life.
Definitely. I had this really wrong belief growing up that, and I think you get this, I think I really picked this up from private school. And it was just that, everyone has the same, we all have the same platform that we stand on, and we can all be successful. I do think we can all be successful, but I do not believe we all come from the same starting positions. I used to believe that. It's just not true. We all start from different starting positions. Like a millionaire son, he starts at a higher position than I did, but he also, that's when the free will kicks in, right? They say around what 6, 7 is the age of reasoning. And then they could either plummet or they could rise. It's just something that popped into my head. Something stupid. I think I shouldn't say it's stupid in case someone believes that, but I do believe we all come from different starting points.
And
But
different paths too. Like I don't know if you've ever done it yourself, but where you reach that crossroad. And it's really interesting when you actually realize you're at that point, that depending on which path you go on, it could have a dramatic impact on the way your life turns out.
I'm actually right there right now. Actually, I have several different paths before me, and I can only pick a few. And so I'm being an author is definitely one that I'm keeping. I wanted to be a comedian for a long time, an actor. I'm letting all that dwindle away. So I'm there right now. Like I need to stick with something.
Yeah.
And I found like 3 things that I know that's my passion. So I've never had it put that way though.
We go through like we do actually change paths. Like the era where we all used to die at 30, that's not now. So there was that time a few generations ago where they did say the one job for their whole life. But when you think about it, they actually didn't live till they were very old in the first place, which is why they could do that. I think one of the reasons we do bounce around and we do change up who and what we are. Like, I don't know about you, I've had more than one job. I've done quite a few of them by the time I've reached this at the stage that I'm at now. So I think it's part of life. So even though at the moment you're saying the acting is taking a backstage, or the comedian is taking a backstage, and right now you're concentrating on being an author, that doesn't mean that later on in life you won't get the opportunity to revisit that.
Yeah, it's that's awesome. I love that. I really, really do. Because it was sad thinking that, you have to just sever that tie. Because a lot of advice that people give me is because I just love doing so many different things. Like, Stevie, you just got to settle down and do a few of them. They usually say one, but they know I'm not going to do one. So they say a few of them. And that's been some of the hardest advice to follow. But like you said, I just had an opportunity, like you said, I had an opportunity a couple of months ago to audition for a Star Wars indie project. So that was awesome.
Did you get it?
I don't know yet with this whole COVID thing. I think I was in a competitive section of people being the same height that they wanted, the fitness, and having a lot of martial arts under my belt, and actually knowing how to wield a sword, which a lot of people don't know about me. I actually trained in sword.
So they're putting you in one of those Jabba costumes, like to really to match your personality.
I don't want them to know this, but I would take any position.
Right?
I know that sounds wrong, but yeah, I would play any part they wanted me to. But I went out for a Jedi. Yeah, and I wrote my own script too, which was like, yes, they let you write your own script. Mine might have been a little too long.
That's pretty cool.
So, yeah. So, you know what, Catherine, and I keep forgetting to do this. Could you tell us a little bit about your series? Should have done this at the beginning.
No, that's okay. So in my series, it's basically a world where magic has gone wrong, or they believe magic has gone wrong. So generations ago, there was a big war, and people with higher levels of power started going mad and killing people. So things progressed to the point where parents were killing their children if they had too much power. I don't show that in the book. It's just mentioned that, so now you've got to the point, everyone has a base level of power, but it's not the done thing for you to chill your drink in front of everybody else because you're scared about how people might react and how much power they think you might have. But my main character is the fourth son of a king, essentially. So no one's going to kill him. And his friends are equally powerful and from like big families as well. Then there's a kidnapping attempt. Things start going a little wrong, and they start realizing that maybe their world isn't quite what they thought it was. There was more going on, and that perhaps it wasn't that the magic was sending people mad. There could be another agency that is doing that. And so, but basically the kidnap attempt is what starts unraveling Alex and this carefree life that he was basically having up until that point.
Wow. So quick question is magic evil?
No, magic is not evil.
Okay.
People thought that there was something about themselves, so that people changed.
Okay.
They didn't know what it was that had happened, just that people started going mad. So that once you reached what I call transition, so it's almost like puberty, but you're a little bit older. So at 18 to like 20s, early 20s, basically, your magic level goes up dramatically. If you have
That's a good
substantial
idea.
power.
Dang it!
Basically.
I should have wrote that first. I like that idea. So some people get more powerful maybe through puberty
Yes.
than others. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I would have been so powerful. Oh God, it's pathetic. It's so embarrassing, Andy. Really, like they wouldn't. Never mind.
But
Uh,
in my world as well, there's no one to teach them either. So, like particularly my three main, they are more powerful than pretty much anyone else around them. They don't realize it yet because of the world that they've grown up in, but there isn't the Grand Wizard to teach them. So they have these moments where they quite literally go, "Oh, oops."
but there was a Grand Wizard at one point.
No, this is
Oh, okay.
emerging powers. So everyone starts with a base level, and powers are just starting to grow.
Oh, yeah. That sounds like chaos would ensue pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Depending on
And
what
my
power.
world, they lock themselves down. And outside of their borders is a little bit freer. But they look at these people and go, okay, you're mad and you're killing people, so we're going to stay away from you.
Do you watch anime by chance?
No.
No, wow. You like explained three of my favorite animes. We got Attack on Titan, which they can't go outside of the city. We have My Hero Academia, which is the powers just come out of nowhere. It wasn't forever like that. It's just they start getting different powers by the age of 11. So I like the idea a lot. That's a really, is it a One Kingdom that's kind of like closed off?
Well, yeah, Valentia is my realm, my kingdom, basically. So they're closed off, but I mentioned two others that they have contact with. But you don't see a lot of those other. You don't really see any of it until the final book, basically.
Awesome. Well, Andy, you want to jump right into it?
Let's do it.
All right, this is Shattering Dreams, which is book one in the Being of Dreams series by Catherine M. Walker. We're on chapter 13, The Shadow Hunts. I love that. So you name your chapters?
I do know.
I do
my chapters,
too.
yep.
Yeah. Andy, you don't,
I
right?
don't. It takes way too much mental effort to like find that really clever name that like encapsulates the chapter, sort of hints at what you're gonna get, but doesn't give it all away. Like my mental energy is better just spent just hammering out the words. So
You know what the last chapter I just edited in my book was?
what?
Jack drops the soap. Because he goes to prison, like this galactic prison thing, and Lisa, his AI, is like, "Oh, I've got some tips for you that I found on the internet." And he's like, "Okay, let me hear them." And then she goes through the list, and the last one's "Don't drop the soap." And then the next chapter, that's the last line, and the next chapter is Jack drops the soap. I'm wondering if Jonathan's going to make me take it out. I hope he doesn't.
That's fine.
That is so wrong. All right, so we've got Kyle and the other character. How do you pronounce his name?
Rathan.
Rathan. All right, those are the only two characters in the chapter?
In this chapter, yes, those are the only
perfect.
two characters.
I feel like the high-pitched voice, I really want to do that. The Lord Rathan. Would you rather, Catherine, would you rather do Kyle or the narrator?
I can do the narrator if you like.
Okay.
All right, Stevie, you got to put on your best badass voice now.
Kyle is how old?
Kyle is in his early 20s. He's Alex's best friend, so he's one of my main characters. He's been trained pretty much as an assassin his whole life. He's like the fourth blade, so he's the unseen sort of blade at Alex's shoulder. So if all else fails and someone gets to the prince, it's Kyle's job. Like Kyle's going to end your life, basically.
Is he cool? Like, is he like a cool guy?
Oh yeah, he is, and he's a bit of a ladies' man. He sleeps around.
Oh well,
he's the guy that when some other lord finds out that his wife is sleeping around, goes to go charging over and finds out it's Kyle and goes, "My bad."
Oh, I like Kyle. That's cool. Okay, I'm excited.
Right. So this chapter this scene is right in the middle of the chapter, basically.
Perfect.
Okay. The Shadow Hunts. Carl waited a moment to give the men time to walk down to the end of the road and out of earshot
in case the Lord Minor called for help, although Carl judged that wasn't unlikely to happen. Hearing movement in the room, Carl walked towards the doorway where he'd stood moments before and saw that Rathan had slumped into his chair, cradling a drink in his hands with a panicked look on his face. Carl walked into the room. Rathan stood in alarm, the glass falling from his nerveless fingers as Carl grabbed him and slammed him into the wall, his dagger moving to the now quivering lord's throat. Rathan spoke, his voice high-pitched.
You can't kill me! I'm a lord! The king will come after you for this!
Rathan tried to straighten imperiously, but failed miserably. Carl laughed, low and menacing.
I know well who you are, Rathan, and the king will not come after me. You gave up your life when you involved yourself in a plot to kidnap the prince.
Carl threw back his hood and smiled as the man's eyes widened in recognition.
Please, Lord Kyle, I can explain. I needed money. No harm would ever come to you or the prince.
Rathan stopped talking as Carl's blade pressed firmer into the skin of his throat, enough that the sharp blade cut into the skin. A thin trail of blood trickled down Rathan's throat.
You're lying, Rathan. I was there. The blonde one was about to plunge a dagger into Alex's chest right before I came in and snapped her little neck. Tell me who is controlling you, Rathan. Who suggested this little enterprise?
Carl hauled the quivering Rathan forward and shoved him back into his seat. Seeing Rathan's eyes flick towards the exit, Carl laughed.
I wouldn't if I were you. You'll be dead before you reach the door. Now talk.
Carl's eyes bored down onto the hapless lordling, who squirmed. Rathan licked his lips. He looked up at Kyle, unable to look away.
You will kill me anyway, won't you?
Carl felt nothing but contempt for the man, but saw no point in denying the likely result of the encounter.
You are guilty of treason, and I am the shadow that protects the fourth. It's my duty.
Carl saw no reason he couldn't use the damn legend to his advantage.
Still, there are easy ways to die and hard ways. Which way it ends for you is in your hands. Either way, before you die, you will tell me what I want to know.
Carl once again marveled at his cold detachment, knowing every word he spoke was true. He watched Rathan as he continued to squirm in his chair before slumping.
I don't know. It came up in conversation when I was at a bar in Valantia. Everyone was laughing and drinking. I was telling my friends I was running out of money and my father refused to give me more. John and Caleb, I presume you were here while they were. Well, I owe their boss money.
Rathan licked his lips again, his chin quivering, looking for all the world like he was about to cry. Carl said nothing. He continued to stare at the man, waiting, patient, knowing he would continue, his type always did.
I was at the tankard waiting for you and the prince to show up. I knew you both frequented the place, hope I'd run into you and we'd become friends. Then John and Caleb's boss wouldn't dare to touch me if I was a friend of the prince.
Rathan's words had been tumbling out of his mouth one after the other, to the point that Carl had to concentrate to make out what the man was babbling about. He also wondered where the story was going. With a quick glance at Carl for permission, or at least a sign he wouldn't kill him, he reached over to the nearby table and pulled a bottle of cheap-looking alcohol towards him, a fresh glass, and pouring the dark liquor to the brim. He took a long gulp and sat for a moment, lost in thoughts.
There was a man. I didn't recognize him, but he laughed when he heard of my troubles and suggested I abduct the prince and Lady Jesselan. And you. Well, I think he suggested you and Lady Jesselan because you're always with the prince.
Rathan contemplated his drink once more, taking another swallow of the cheap but potent brew. Then he laughed.
He said, the girl shouldn't be a problem, yet she somehow killed Oliver and escaped. He suggested the drug that could contain all of you, and Jonna, Kelly, and Oliver from the Leaf and Feather could help keep the three of you entertained until the king paid the ransom. The first night, it all went wrong. You intervened in the bottle with the drug, and it smashed on the floor. Lady Jesselyn ended up with that other man. I was Relieved. I thought it was over.
Carl watched and waited. He knew Rathan wasn't finished.
Then you all showed up again. They knew you would. They had to scramble, but the plan rolled out. This time it was working. He said I'd only have to keep you all in the house for a few days, and I'd be rich beyond what I could imagine, that I'd never need my father's money again.
Rathan's voice shook. His voice trembled as he spoke, seemingly lost in memory.
I don't know what came over me. What the man said just kept playing on my mind. Then it was all in motion. You, Jess, and the prince showed up. It was going so well. Then it all went wrong. I was ordered to keep you both here for 2 days. Instead, it was only a night.
Rathan sobbed, biting his lip hard, enough to draw blood, before taking another drink. Carl contemplated the man, trying to make sense of his rambling story.
Did the man say the king would pay a ransom, or just that you would be paid well for abducting and drugging us, for keeping us at the house?
Rathan looked up at him, confusion written all over his face.
Well, he didn't mention the king, but who else would pay?
Carl gritted his teeth, willing patience.
How were you to get the money?
Rathan blinked, took a quick drink before replying.
Bane. The man called himself Bane. He said he'd get the money for me, that I'd be rich.
Carl wanted to curse, but restrained himself.
How did John and Caleb come into this whole affair? What was their part?
John and Caleb tracked me down. Their boss wanted his money, but they heard the conversation and wanted in on the whole thing. Said they would help, be the muscle. Said I'd get my cut of the money, they'd take theirs and give a portion to their boss to pay off my debt. It sounded like a good deal, so I agreed. I don't know why I did, but I did. Then I left. John and Caleb stayed at the tavern, talking to Bane.
Rathan slumped back into his chair. He looked defeated.
The man Bane, have you ever seen him at court?
Carl's mind was racing, trying to work out who Bane was, but he didn't hold much hope that Rathan knew anything else. And, as he expected, Rathan just shook his head.
How was he dressed? Rich, commoner, merchant, sellsword?
Carl knew from what Rathan said that the man he needed was Bane. He was the part of the thread. If he got the end and pulled, he could unravel the whole thing.
Bane, he was well dressed, not a commoner or merchant, but no lord either. Otherwise I would have recognized him. Dark hair shaved close to the skull, a tattoo down his right arm, a trail of skulls from his neck to his knife hand. Oh, and a scar. He had a bad scar trailing down the line of his left jawbone.
Rathan took a swig of his drink, emptying the glass, then poured another for himself. Carl took a deep breath, pushing down his anger through sheer willpower. He didn't want to kill the man. Yet. The man Rathan had just described, Bane, with the shaved head and a skull tattoos trailing down his right arm, belonged to the League of Skulls. Assassins, thieves, blades for hire. There was nothing they wouldn't do if the price was right. Still, they rarely went after members of the royal family. That ended in all-out warfare with the crown. History showed that didn't pay so well. Carl thought for a moment more, then asked one final question.
Who was the man you lost all your father's money to?
Rathan was almost insensible now with the amount of Iraq he'd had, but took a moment from drinking to look up at him.
Lord Cresswell Vannon. He owns half the illegal gambling houses in Valantia.
Carl paced 2 steps forward to Lord Minor Rathan, his face blank, calm.
Sleep well, Lord Minor Rathan. May the veil grant you rest and return to this world to redeem the life you failed.
With those words, he moved behind the insensible lord, wrapped his arms around his throat, cutting his air supply, until he slumped unconscious. Satisfied, Carl pulled his head back, extended his neck, and sliced his dagger across the man's throat before letting him go. The former Lord Minor slid forwards out of the chair, crumpling into a lifeless heap on the floor, blood pooling around him. Carl walked around his crumpled victim towards the door, his face calm, almost dispassionate, and he left without looking back.
Damn, Kyle don't play around.
No, he doesn't. Well, in fairness, they did just try to kidnap them all.
Okay.
So, you know.
Wow. I highlighted this part. Rathan's words had been tumbling out of his mouth one after the other, to the point that Kyle had to concentrate to make out what the man was babbling about. I love this because this is what I do. I have to concentrate on what people are saying sometimes. I just have to really focus, like, okay, I'm just kind of going off here. What are they really saying? I just like that part. I thought it was a really a good detail to add. So
Yeah, well, see, this is the first, like, just before the scene before this.
So the world he kind of lived in, he didn't know whether it was real. So he's been training most of his life, and the person training him was his long dead ancestor, basically. And then he just came to the realization, oh, wait a minute, it's been real. I've actually been killing people for a very long time. Yeah, so that moment happened just before this one.
Real Ender's Game moment there.
that's why he's contemplating so much about it all.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Well, thank you so much, Catherine, for letting us enter your world. That was freaking awesome. I love the ending. And yeah, where can people find you?
They can find me on my website, catherinemwalker.com. I have a page on Facebook. I am terrible at social media, but if you put a comment or send me a message, I'll certainly try my best to answer it. There's also a contact form on my website as well. People do send me mail. I've had hate mail and the positive stuff as well. So that's all good.
Very nice. Yeah, really nice looking website too. Yeah, check her book out on Amazon. That is Catherine M. Walker for all of you listening. Andy, anything else we need to talk about today?
That's it for this week.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. I can't believe we're already at 623 subscribers. As far as I know, this is one of the largest book shows on YouTube and on podcast out there, one of them. So we really appreciate your support. And if you want to support us more, you could hit that like button and share this on Facebook. I know some of you do, and I really appreciate it. Guys, that's it for this Fantasy Fiends podcast. We'll see you next Thursday for another awesome guest. And we have a really cool amount of people coming up for the summer too. Have a good one.
Good night.
Night.
Bye.